Hello, welcome to the Thought Leader Recruiter podcast. Today, my guest is Mark Stevenson, founder of Champion Recruiting. Mark, welcome to the show. How are you?
Doing well, Sam. Thanks for the time. Much appreciated.
Good to have you here. So, Mark, can you just walk us through what you do and why you decided to build a firm focused on tech sales?
Sales. Yes. Probably because I got fired from an in-house sales recruiter job and I said I wouldn't get fired again. The only way you don't get fired in this world is what? Like you and me, Sam, you run your own show. So, nah, it was just a 3-month consulting gig, but, you know, I didn't really think that they were recruiting properly. So, what I did is I started Champion Recruiting about 12 years ago and maybe 13, I forget. But we grew it to about 50 or so clients, companies. And, it was one of those things where everyone gets into engineering recruiting, but there's a tremendous need for sales recruiting just because, in this world, you either build something or you sell something. You know, when I was in sales finance, I was always on the back of the bus in Silicon Valley. They'd kick us out of meetings in 5 minutes. And, I'd be like, I'd look at my boss and I'd be like, wait a minute, don't they know we're dealing with their budget now? And, they would just, okay, you guys can go now. You're not in sales. So I'd always ask the sales guys, can I get into sales? And they kept saying, no, Mark, you're a finance guy. And they'd walk me back over to the finance department again, and I got tired of that. Finally, I got into recruiting, which was sales. So it's been a fun run. Uh, Champions, we're firing it up again now. It's been shut down, with COVID. I've been working on RepSheet, which is my new AI company. Everybody's got new AI, right? So you got to reinvent yourself and pivot every decade or so. So all RepSheets are is they're a one-page sales resume. During COVID, I sat down with some of my recruiters, and we're small. We have 5 or so recruiters, boutique is the word I like to use. But, you know, recruiting is broken just because sales resumes are broken. Everybody puts whatever numbers they want on it, Sam. They're all at clubs. It's just, everybody, you know, thinks AI is going to solve everything. The problem in this world is the data is not accurate. So I think AI is going to really expose a lot of the data that's just been junked for like such a long time. And then the next phase is going to be, okay, so AI isn't hallucinating anymore. It's really the data. And the AI is damn good. So what do? We got to fix the data. How do we certify data? And that's what we're trying to do with the rep sheet.
Yeah, interesting. And yeah, when we last spoke, you mentioned you work closely with VPs of sales and place top performing enterprise hunters. What types of companies lean on you the most?
We do a lot with, when I started about a decade ago, we tried to do everything, but now we're just focused on cybersecurity. And I like to do data analytics. Are you an M13? I saw the tattoo. I might have to shut off this call here.
No, I'm not.
You know, I always joke around, but that's what I do as recruiting. We don't take ourselves too seriously. You got to have fun with people. You know, Talking to recruiters is tiresome for sales reps. So we just joke around with these guys, and half the time I go in and I'm meeting with these companies, and you know, the more you joke around with them, the more they just say, "Hey, Mark, this is exactly what I need." Champion Recruiting Rep Sheet. We're not HR at their companies, so the chief revenue officers and the VPs of sales at these cybersecurity companies, they pay really well for enterprise reps, and what they can't afford is to make a mistake. Sam, what do you think what does it cost the chief revenue officer when they miss on an enterprise rep? What do you think?
Million dollars.
Dude, how do you know that? What are you reading my website? Did that do we prep or something a couple of weeks ago? I forget.
Yeah, we talked before, and I remember you saying it costs $1 million.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it. Man,
yeah,
you're just not a pretty face, brother. You're actually retain some data, huh?
yeah. Oh, yeah, yes, absolutely.
All right, yeah, no, it's a big problem, right? Because everybody always thinks, oh, when you fire a rep, maybe they've been there for 6 months. It's like 100, they're on 150 base, it's 75K. No, it's no revenue out of a sales patch for like a year, and it's a big, big problem. Oh, and what are these? VPs of sales using when they hire sales reps. They get a piece of paper, 3 or 4 pages from a sales guy, and then they got to look at the data, and there's a bunch of words, and it's all, blah, 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 blah. And, when I see too many words on a sales resume, what does it usually mean? It means that the numbers are not there. The best sales guys just have, 1 page, if not maybe 2 page resumes. The smart ones are using a rep sheet. A lot of times I get these guys on the phone, Sam, and I say, listen, your resume, no disrespect, brother, but your resume sucks. What do you mean, Mark? I'm making all this money. I make $1 million last year, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, listen, brother, I know you're a great sales rep, but you don't ever write sales resumes, right? Yeah, Mark, I never have been looking for a job in my life. They always find me. One of my competitors hires me, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. So let us help you. Let's take your resume. Let's make it better. Let's put nothing but numbers on it. And I pick them apart. I sit there saying, when I go, listen, Joe, you've been at this company for 6 years and you got two numbers there for 2 years. What did you do for the first year? Well, the product wasn't ready. Okay. Well, but what about the next year? You're missing that number, and I just go year by year by year because every good sales rep should have an annual number. How much revenue did you bring in each year? Did you either make your number or did you miss? Sales is binary. It's easy. Sales recruiting is actually pretty easy if you have the data. The hardest part is getting the data, and then getting accurate data. That's a whole nother game, right?
Do you think like your LinkedIn profile is just as important now as a resume or a CV?
It's more important.
Yeah, I
It's
believe
I
that.
hate to say it, but we live in a world of pretty people, and in sales especially, they got to have a certain look if they're an outside rep. So the picture's very important. The hard part on LinkedIn is I have to sit there and, okay, LinkedIn's been around since 2002. Oh, was this picture taken when the person graduated from college, or is it was it taken 10 years ago or like 2 years ago? They should put a picture out, a date on it, but they can't do that in this world, right? But what does every in-house recruiter, whether it's especially in sales, we're trying to figure out. Outside recruiting is all the stuff that in-house sales recruiters, say they can't do. At least outside recruiters, we're pretty direct and say, this is what we do. We're trying to look. I can't get paid a fee unless an enterprise rep is pretty much between the age of 25 and 45, right? For an enterprise rep, it's usually 30 to 42. It's a very age discriminatory world. I got clients of mine that says, Mark, my in-house sales recruiter, she's 55 years old and she keeps sending me over 50-year-old dudes like you, Mark. And I go, yeah, well, you don't want guys like me, because am I going to get on a plane on a Friday and fly to, across the country to meet with a client? No, I'm gonna, say, hey, Sam, let's do a Zoom call. I'm not going to fly to London or whatever. Right. So that's what they want in sales, is they need to have the energy and the youth. And I'm not, are 50-year-old guys useful in sales? Yeah, they're great. It's just this world in recruiting, to pay an outside fee. What do we get paid at Champion Recruiting? We get 20% to 25% of base salary. And, for those to pay an outside recruiter, companies want what they cannot get on LinkedIn, which is top enterprise hunters. We actually have to go out and hunt these dudes. Like, the problem with LinkedIn is, if you're posting a job, who responds to job boards? The C players. Even the B players don't even look at job boards. They don't have, they're like, it's just a big problem right now, because if you post a job, you get 1,000 people that hit a button, and all of a sudden their resume is sent to 500 companies. That's the biggest problem. So no one's really looking at those resumes that come in that way. The top hunters have to be hunted. You got to cold call these guys. You got to meet them at trade shows. You got to develop a rapport with these guys. It's like everybody knows who they are. The hard part is getting to them.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I see a stat floating about the other day. It says that cybersecurity talent gap will hit 3.5 million unfilled jobs globally this year. How's that kind of like talent scarcity affecting your clients' hiring strategies?
Crypto is a unique sector, because if a CEO gets hacked, if a company gets hacked, what happens to the CEO, Sam?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like you or me, we're doing podcasts, right? I'm just kidding. CEOs get fired if they get hacked.
Mhm.
Um, it's mission critical. So that's why I like the space, because it's recession proof in a lot of ways, because companies always have to pay for top enterprise reps. And top enterprise reps are paid the most in cybersecurity. They're paid 150 to 175K base, 300, 350 if they hit 100% of their annual quota. So everybody else is a little bit lower. Data is very important. Everybody's talking about AI. Mark, can you get me into AI recruiting? AI recruiting, you can't make any money in AI recruiting yet, right? I had a guy, a VP of sales. He took a VP of sales job 5 years ago in AI, and I told him, I said, and he's been a client of mine for years at different companies. We placed reps with him at several companies. He goes, Mark, I haven't made any money in AI for 5 years. And I'm like, you're not going to make any money in AI unless you're sitting at OpenAI or Anthropic or Microsoft, Perplexity, CoreWeave, any of the big boys, right? All the other companies like, everybody claims they have AI, like repsheet.ai. You know why I have my domain name named repsheet.ai?
Why is
Because
it?
because some high school kid wanted 30 grand for repsheet.com. I couldn't afford it.
Really?
I told him, I said, I'll give you 3 grand. And he said, nope, Mark, 30 grand. And so I bought repsheet.ai. And that was a couple years ago before AI even got big. So now we're trying to figure out, okay, we got this concept. So we got to bolt on some AI. And that's what everybody's doing in AI. So, at the end of the day, you never want to, here's the deal with sales recruiting. Never sell a product that's three or four or five in the marketplace. Always push a Coke or Pepsi. Make your life easy. Push Coke or Pepsi because everybody wants to buy number one or two. Um, that's pretty much the golden rule. And stay in like a C round type company. That's where reps make the most money. C round, the C stands for cash because it's, A round is for the product. The first sales guy is hired in the A round gets shot. The co-founders are delusional. They got too many bells. The engineers have got too many bells and whistles on the product. The B round sales guys get shot. The C round, they always like the C round, Sam, because they can ask, what's the golden question to ask if you're an enterprise rep going for an interview, Sam? You look like a good, hey, turn your head sideways. I got to see the side profile, man. Turn sideways. All right, yeah. We could get you in for we could get you an enterprise rep job. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I mean, tell me more.
Now, what's the golden question to ask if you're an enterprise rep going for an interview?
You tell me. What is it? What is the number one?
Go ahead.
What is it? Tell me.
It's what is the median W-2 for your reps last year? How much money did the middle rep, if you got 100 reps, tell me what number 50 made last year? Okay, and then go back and ask for the next year. So if you got some data on what the guy in the middle is making, then it's like, okay, the bell-shaped curve. If those guys in the middle are making a lot of money, if they're overachieving, then it's good news, right? And that's the data that you have in the C round because they have enough reps hired. You can still get in before the IPO. You still have 3, 4, 5 years before the IPO to make the crazy money. Because once the IPO hits, it's game over. Everybody stops making money. They got the bean counter start showing up with the MBAs and they start pruning away and the comp plan changes and they go back to making 200K a year. The 800K years are over. That's the kind of money you make in the C round, right? CDE. And those are the years that reps just love. And they're always coming to me like, Mark, what do you have in the C round? And I'm like, dude, I'm an we're a small recruiting firm, right? Everybody, we get in when the companies are startups, A round, B round. That's the world we play in. So I have to kind of sell them on. Listen, you know how much money you would have made if you got into, Amazon or Google early. I've had some clients over the years, PagerDuty, MongoDB, App Dynamics, and these companies were I thought PagerDuty sucked. I actually was in there and they were like an A-round company. They needed to fill up a room of like 50,000 square feet of reps. And I looked at the room and I said, what do you guys do? And the guy said to me, Mark, when a data center goes down, the pager on an engineer goes off. And I looked at this guy, the chief or the VP of sales, and I said, pagers don't even exist. This was like 2015 or 2013 or somewhere. And he looked at me like, yeah, I don't know why I'm here either. But the company went public. I mean, there's billboards all over. I drive down every week. I'm driving to Silicon Valley. I have to look at PagerDuty. And you know what it reminds me of? All the money that we lost because I thought the company sucked, right? So I stopped trying to figure out the best companies, right? All you can really do is look for serial entrepreneurs. Where's the money coming from? Is it top tier VC money? The reason I like serial entrepreneurs that have done something before is they're pretty savvy and they've got, it's like if VCs have ponied up again at another company for them, they've already made money on them. So, the likelihood that they're going to succeed is pretty high. Is it always the case? No, but so life is all about, getting a job is all about minimizing the risk to maximize the revenue. So,
Mark, I appreciate your time today. Really, really good. Our audience would like to know a bit more about RepSheet AI or Champion Recruiting. Where can they find out a bit more about that?
my two websites, repsheet.ai. Rep sheets are free, and then champion-recruiting.com. We're the only recruiting firm out there that uses these rep sheets. So, my clients like these things because, as I said, they save them a lot of money, right? Minimizing the risk of a bad hire. So, Sam, hey, I really appreciate the time. It's probably I babbled too much, right? You probably are used to asking like 10 questions in 20 minutes, but I think you asked 3.